Hey everybody, what's up? How's it going? Hello. Hey everyone, what's up? Thank you for joining me. Oh shoot, 5-second rule. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. How's it going? I'm coming at you live from Washington, D.C. I'm coming at you from my apartment in DC that has still not been furnished. So I got sworn in January 3rd. Today is April something. And I still don't own a chair. Until today, when I got a folding chair delivered to my apartment, along with some other furniture. So, it just says wine and popcorn are almost all I eat when Daniel is gone. We have something in common. So my apartment is like unfurnished. I've been living like a completely depraved lifestyle. I've been sleeping on a mattress on the floor, but it's like the mattress, and then under the mattress is like the plastic wrap that the mattress came in. I'm just spilling all the secrets right now. Because I've just been so busy. Like, you work, you know, I'm out of the apartment a lot of the times before most stores and anything open, and then I come back after they all close, and I'm always running from one place to another doing so many events and things like that, even in New York, that there's like barely any time to even shop for things to order online. Like, my time to go furniture shopping is like 11:30 p.m. to 2 a.m. So it's been a little bit of a struggle bus, but I did get some IKEA furniture shipped in today, so I'm just gonna assemble it. But I don't have any tools, so I'm just gonna hope none of these need more than like a quarter to turn things, but we'll find out. Anywho, just here to take some of your questions. Someone said, can you give us a tutorial on time management? Oh man, I don't know if I'm the best person to ask for that, because I always like sacrifice basic human functioning, like sleeping and eating and drinking water. So I don't think I'm a good person to ask for advice on that. This I think is gonna be pretty easy. All right, this is what I'm making, okay? Okay? I'm making a tray table. And it comes with the Allen wrench. It's an Allen wrench only situation, so I'm in luck. All right, we'll see how this goes. Oh shoot, there are things in here. So let me know what questions you have as I try to multitask. You know, like in retrospect, this is probably a horrible idea, because every time you're talking to somebody and you're trying to multitask by putting together IKEA furniture, you put it together and like half of it is upside down, but you look away 1 second, it assembles itself, and it's upside down, but whatever. This like literally isn't that bad at all. It's like 4 screws. This should not be a problem. So let me know your questions as I put this together, and we shall see what happens. Okay, so just for the record, here's a little problem-solving tutorial. I learned this when studying economics. No matter what problem you're trying to solve, it's always a really good idea to organize your givens first. So that doesn't, I know that may not make a ton of sense, but it's like you have a complex problem put in front of you. Always either write down or organize your givens, the set facts that you know about a situation, and you just write down the known variables, because then you look at them and it's kind of like when you dump a puzzle piece, it's kind of like when you have a puzzle box and you dump all of the pieces on the table and you turn them all up. Even though they're all out of order, you can kind of see that there is a picture in front of you, and it helps you put the picture together. That sounds like, I mean, it's super complicated. I mean, that sounds like, wait, whatever, but that's just a very long way of saying I'm going to put the IKEA pieces in front of me so I can look at them. Someone asked, I have a question. How do you keep your cool when you see the injustices, or even when prejudice and bigotry is directed at you? How do you keep focused on your goals when opponents take the low road? Someone asked me a similar question earlier today, just like, how do you stay grounded and focused on issues when there's so much nonsense and craziness and personal insults and bullying and concern trolling and this isn't realistic and blah, blah, blah going on? One thing that helps me a lot is that I do have the privilege of serving with some real history makers in Congress. People like John Lewis, people like Chairman Elijah Cummings, that were part of the civil rights movement and faced far, far worse things. And it's not to say, and I don't approach it from a comparative perspective as much, but what they kind of inspire me to do is to look at the present moment through the lens of the future, or the future that we hope to envision. So what that means to me is like, in a sense, but it's like you have a complex problem put in front of you. Always either write down or organize your givens, the set facts that you know about a situation, and you just write down the known variables, because then you look at them and it's kind of like when you dump a puzzle piece, it's kind of like when you have a puzzle box and you dump all of the pieces on the table and you turn them all up. Even though they're all out of order, you can kind of see that there is a picture in front of you, and it helps you put the picture together. That sounds like, I mean, it's super complicated. I mean, that sounds like, wait, whatever, but that's just a very long way of saying I'm going to put the IKEA pieces in front of me so I can look at them. Someone asked, I have a question. How do you keep your cool when you see the injustices, or even when prejudice and bigotry is directed at you? How do you keep focused on your goals when opponents take the low road? Someone asked me a similar question earlier today, just like, how do you stay grounded and focused on issues when there's so much nonsense and craziness and personal insults and bullying and concern trolling and this isn't realistic and blah, blah, blah going on. One thing that helps me a lot is that I do have the privilege of serving with some real history makers in Congress. People like John Lewis, people like Chairman Elijah Cummings, that were part of the civil rights movement and faced far, far worse things. And it's not to say, and I don't approach it from a comparative perspective as much, but what they kind of inspire me to do is to look at the present moment through the lens of the future, or the future that we hope to envision. So what that means to me is like, I try to look at this present moment through the eyes of my grandchildren, or I try to look at this present moment through the eyes of people 70 years from now, looking back at today and saying, what did she do, or what did this person do, or what was going on? And that helps me put things into perspective a lot, and it helps me take the pressure off of the present moment and basically say, you know, it's like with John Lewis, or it is like with Chairman Elijah Cummings, or it is like with, you know, when we look back in history and we see even white people who were fighting for black voting rights in the South, when it would ostracize them and separate them from their families, you know, emotionally and ostracize them. And we look at those people today as heroes. And we look at those people today saying, you know, in that moment of great moral crisis, my grandfather stood up for the right thing when it was so hard to do. And so, so that's kind of how I feel about the present moment today, is that I want and I hope that people in the future look back at this moment and say, she tried to do everything that she could, including risking, you know, personal things for other people. And she tried to give as much of herself for the betterment of other people as possible. All people, working people, marginalized people, middle-class people, but she did everything she could for the betterment of society. And that is how I take the present moment into perspective. And it really takes a lot of the pressure off, because let's say I challenge this whole power structure and they hate me and they decide that they're going to mount a smear campaign and challenge me in 2020, and I'm just a one-term congresswoman, right? Like, let's say that's the worst case scenario. So what? So what? Because I think, and I hope that we're showing that fearlessness can make a lot of change really rapidly, and much more substantially than just perpetual incrementalism just for valuing incrementalism. Like, there's this idea that almost like the right path is the moderate, tiny, incrementalist path, no matter what. And it's like that saying, everything in moderation, including moderation. And now is not the time to be moderate morally. I understand people who are in positions where they feel that they have to be moderate politically. but I don't feel like morally this is the moment for moderation. And even you look at Martin Luther King, you read his writing, you read his book, Why We Can't Wait. He says, at first, people called me an extremist, and I took offense to that. But then you look into the, great people in American history and great people in all history. And and he goes down this list and he said, was Jefferson not an extremist for freedom, say? Or say, was Lincoln not an extremist for abolition? Was Jesus not an extremist for love? To give all of oneself. So it's not about the question is not whether you are or aren't an extremist. The question is, will you be an extremist for love? What will you be an extremist for? These are the words of Martin Luther King. This is how his history is whitewashed. People don't know that Martin Luther King was a democratic socialist, that that Albert Einstein too was a democratic socialist, because it was seen, and there was a very strong period in American history where people saw this late stage capitalism, profit at any human and environmental cost, as unsustainable, as a midway point to a better and more humane society. That capitalism was this necessary, especially this late stage extremist, hyper extractive form of capitalism that means that a corporation can give an entire community cancer because polluting the local water is profitable to them, because they need to dump a bunch of stuff. And this idea, people recognize that as unsustainable, and that perhaps capitalism is like this necessary rudimentary technology way of organizing the economy. But as soon as we start solving the technological problems of scarcity, then it creates this fundamental issue where if profit happens through scarcity, but then the problem of scarcity gets solved, things become less and less profitable. And so all of this is to say that people want to make this about like this very blanket, like cartoonish, this ideology or that, but it's never about that. History is not like that. Humanity is not organized that way. Society is not organized that way. And this is about, this is about the messy transitions of human history and what we hope to be human evolution if we don't go backwards with this administration. All right, what am I doing here? All right. I am putting these things together. Apparently unscrewed in, untightened, and then put in all the other ones, and then you kind of you tighten them up whenever all of the screws that are in that alignment are in, and it helps you like not break everything. This doesn't have particle board in it, so that's less of a concern, but it does help you line up all of the other stuff. Okay. Okay, I put this in here. This is like the easiest one. Like this is not a problem. I'm not trying to like flex or impress anybody. This is literally 4 screws. All right, bam. I'm taking a look at some of your questions. This one says, do you think there's sufficient evidence for Trump evading taxes, or can you not talk about that? So when it comes to Trump's tax evasion, the whole thing is that you need information. And this president is the first one in modern political history to not offer his tax returns for the American public to see as he was running. And the thing that has made this administration, I guess, challenging legally is that what a lot of people don't realize is how much of this stuff that presidents have done that have historically been custom but should have actually been law. So there is no current law that demands that presidential candidates turn over their tax returns. But it has always been a practice by both Republican and Democratic presidential nominees, because your tax returns can really help you determine if you are compromised financially, whether by a foreign actor or even just a domestic one. Because if your taxes are all crazy, it lets the public know, and it just puts an alert out to make sure you aren't extorted for any reason. It just like kind of clears up the air. It's like in a similar way how a lot of candidates offer like their medical records or whatever to press. Oh, did I do this wrong? See, look, I did it wrong, guys. Dang it. It's okay, it's just 2 screws. Now, usually there isn't a huge reason to compel, because everyone offers them. But in this case, as we heard in several hearings, there is submitted congressional testimony to the record that indicates the president may have artificially inflated his real estate valuations for insurance and then artificially deflated the value of his real estate to evade taxes. So now that we have sworn testimony submitted to the congressional record on that, we're going to need to see his taxes, because it's important to know and to clear the air as to whether or not tax crimes were committed. And here's the thing, if you love Donald Trump or whatever, you should not have a problem with him clearing his name of tax fraud. And if you don't like him, and he has committed tax fraud, or not even like or not like, but if you care as to whether the President of the United States committed crimes in the past, then we also need to see his tax returns. So, you know what? Either way, if you love him, you're going to want to see his taxes out. If you don't love him, you're going to want to see his taxes out. If you love this country, you will want to see his taxes out. And P.S., just so that this never happens again, I have co-sponsored, along with over 200 members of Congress, a bill known as H.R. 1 that would actually make disclosing 10 years of tax returns a requirement for any person who declares themselves a candidate for the presidency, just so that we never have to deal with this again with anybody, regardless of your damn party. So it's called H.R. 1. Almost every Democrat is on it. I feel like maybe a Republican's on it, but I really have no idea. But just call and make sure your local Republican elected official, especially member of Congress, especially if they're in a close seat and lost maybe your Republican won your seat by like a point or two, they may want to listen to you. So, all right, we got the frame up here. Boom! I did it. There's something very satisfying about putting together IKEA furniture. It like makes you feel like you actually did something. Okay, so piece number 1, done. Piece number 2. Now, a desk. Let me take one question while I try to open this box. Okay, questions. Should IKEA be nationalized? Trick question, it's not an American company. Okay, where are the questions? Thank you guys for your help. Do I need help? No, I'm an independent woman. No, I probably would need help, but I'm alone today. Okay, what flavor popcorn? This is just normal butter popcorn, but I have a secret. I put ground pepper over my popcorn, and it adds a little like savory dimension. It just makes, you know, like Pop Secret, but gourmet. What are your questions here, y'all? How can students make higher education a priority in Congress? Vote. Like, vote. Like, the reason no one wants to forgive student loans is because people under 35 don't vote as high as seniors do, at a higher rate as seniors do. So, like straight up, voter turnout and like swing voters or like key electorates are largely what determines the prioritization of issues in Congress. That and lobbyists. Someone said, do you support our service members? If so, can I get a wave? Of course I support our service members. Thank you. Thank you for serving our country. I think some of the best ways that we can honor our service members is by focusing on improving their lives once they come back home, making sure that we avoid the privatization of the VA and we invest in it so that our service members don't have to deal with long wait times or any of that, because people don't want to, they want austerity in the VA and a whole slew of other issues. And I think that Veterans Affairs is one of the most important policy spaces that we can improve on. Okay, what's the question? Give me a question. Would you support a female draft? So long as we have a draft, I support people of all genders being drafted. Equality. Thoughts of Puerto Rico as a state. This is a good one as I deal with this box situation. How the heck did I get this in here? Okay. Thoughts on Puerto Rico as a state. Here's how I approach this issue from a principled point of view. Puerto Rico, say it with me, y'all. Puerto Rico is a colony of the United States. It is a modern U.S. colony. The United States colonized Puerto Rico after we were at war with Spain in the late 1800s. Spain's colonies included Puerto Rico and several other U.S. territories. And after the Spanish-American War, the United States took Puerto Rico as a spoil. So it went from being a colony of Spain during times of imperialism, it went from being a colony of Spain to being a colony of the United States. And it has been in various legalized forms or legal, colonized legal statuses ever since. Whether it as a commonwealth, whether as a U.S. territory, those are all code words for colony. So, hold on. Aha. So, in that colonizer-colonized or colonizer-colony relationship, it is not up to the colonizer to determine and impose a political status on the colony. What we should do as a result, it is not the progressive or whatever, I would say the principled position through which we should be approaching Puerto Rico. There's a few, but when it comes to the political status, it's not about imposing an opinion of statehood or independence on the colony, because then you're just perpetuating the colonization. If like the colonizing entity, if the imperial entity says to the colony, if the imperial entity says to the colony, you're going to be a state now, that's still a colonial, you're still using a colonial and colonized framework. Even if you point to them and say, you're going to be independent or whatever that is, it's just like fraught the process and the power structure that gets you to any conclusion. So in my opinion, the way that you approach this, the position that you take, especially coming from, you know, the approaching statehood, is that it's not up to Congress to impose a political status on a U.S. colony. It is up to the people and residents of that U.S. colony, the citizens, the American citizens in that colony, to pursue a process of binding self-determination. So it's not about statehood or independence, it's about self-determination or congressional determination. Now, people will be quick to bring up, oh, Puerto Rico has had referendums in the past. Puerto Rican referendums have historically been non-binding. So Puerto Ricans will have a plebiscite, they have voted, and you know, in the past, many have voted for statehood. You vote for statehood, it's still been non-binding. It's like what happens to that election, it's almost like a poll, like poll results. And it gets sent to Congress, and that's where the question of Puerto Rican political status goes to die. So, in my opinion, we should be approaching a process of binding self-determination where we honor and implement the results of a plebiscite, no matter what they are, without preconditions, because that is how you wrap up this whole historical inequity in a just way. That's just one element of the question. There are many people that want to raise the issue of reparations with respect to U.S. territories as well. And also just the historical inequity of U.S. colonies. U.S. colonies, aka U.S. territories. And for people who are like, Puerto Rico's not a colony, what does the word U.S. territory sound like to you? Like, is that not the most like colonial or colonistic language you've ever heard? Like, United States. It's like, what? Anyways. You still have the question provided, Puerto Rico alone has sent almost 1 million people to serve in the U.S. military and in our armies. And speaking of service members, almost 1 million Puerto Ricans Puerto Rico has offered almost 1 million service members in U.S. history to our armed forces. Beyond a whole bunch of other things that Puerto Rico is used for and exploited for, including tax breaks for pharmaceutical corporations in the past, tax havens, loopholes. It's like a domestic offshore account situation. It's like domestic. It's like a domesticated offshore tax haven kind of situation going on. Exploited, and the Puerto Rican people pay as a result. So anyway, that's just a long way of saying that it's not about imposing a position on statehood or independence. It's about fighting for the binding Puerto Rican people. And by the way, when we talk about the history of Puerto Rico and those plebiscites and those referendums, a lot of them had very low voter turnout. And Puerto Rico is not a place with historically low voter turnout. Puerto Rico has historically had voter participation rates as high as 80% of the electorate turns out to vote in Puerto Rico. Why? Because they already have a lot of the proposals that we fight for here in the U.S. election day is a free day. It's either a holiday or of many other policies that Puerto Rico implements that allows its democracy to be much more robust in terms of voter participation and turnout than overall federal elections. But all of that is to say that when the plebiscite and the referendum happened, the voter participation was very low, and many people were boycotting because they were saying, what is the point of having an election whose results aren't honored in law, have no implication for U.S. law? They'll say, mean anything. It doesn't force. Anyways, that's why we should demand that self-determination be binding and that we don't enact just the results of a past non-binding referendum because people don't understand what the stakes are. So have an election, make that election have some teeth and some stakes, honor the ability of people to self-govern. That is a basic principle of American democracy, and it should be a principle that is extended to all Americans, including the ones in Puerto Rico, but also in Guam, the U.S. Virgin Territories, and all U.S. territories, U.S. Virgin Islands and all U.S. territories. So there you have it. Okay, this is what I'm building now. Okay, so it says I need a screwdriver, which is a bad sign. Should I try to do this without a screwdriver? Yes or no? Do this if I should try to assemble this without a screwdriver. Do this if I should move on to the next thing I'm trying to put together. What do you all think? Try it without the screwdriver. Try it. Move on to the next thing. Okay, I'm seeing a bunch of yeses, 2 no's. You all just like want to see me break IKEA furniture as I put it together. But you know what? Democracy prevails. Does it? Ooh, I'm getting more no's. There's a lot of no's in here. First it was like all yeses, now it's a lot of no's. Oh wow. I feel like the troublemakers are doing the yeses. Votes are in. People are saying do it. Someone said you get to break it. All right, I'll do it. Who cares? But if I break this desk, just know it's your fault and you should feel guilty. Okay. All right, let me lay out my givens. And have fruit snacks. There's a lot of pieces in this. Okay, let's see what other questions you guys have. What questions do y'all have? What's your opinion on capital punishment? I'm against it. Someone said, someone said, are these Yeezys? No, they're not Yeezys. Someone said, is this live? Yes, this is live. What fruit snacks are you having? Mott's. My boyfriend's mom sent me a box of them. Mixer Yankees. Bro. Come on now. How many years until the world ends again? We have 12 years left to cut emissions by at least 50%, if not more. And for everyone who wants to make a joke about that, you may laugh, but your grandkids will not. So understand that the internet documents everything. And for all those people, you know, you want to talk about looking in the back of history, looking backwards. You look back and you open history books on the civil rights movement, and you see those folks who were protesting against the ability for African Americans and Black Americans to have the right to vote. And they would hold up these bigoted signs, and they would hold up signs that said things like, what about white rights, and like all of this stuff. in the 1950s, 1960s. So just know that in the present day, there are a lot of people who hide the fact that their families and that their grandparents fought against principles of equal rights in the United States. Not 100 years ago, not 80 years ago, but in this generation's lifetime. So just know that while a lot of people can hide that their grandparents did that in the civil rights movement, you should also know that the internet documents everything, and your grandchildren will not be able to hide the fact that you fought against acknowledging and taking bold actions on climate change. And people who are trying to mock and delay this moment, I mean, I just feel bad for you. I just pity you for your role in history right now. Okay, next. Okay, this actually says use the cardboard as like a protective underlay. So I'm going to try to do that. The reason Republicans hate me so much is because I confront them directly on their lack of moral grounding on so many issues. And not just that, but the reason they're so upset and they act like that girl in The Exorcist that's like vomiting pea soup, that's like them and negativity. The reason that they do that is because they need to fiercely protect a paradigm and way of thinking that says short-term gains are more important, no matter how marginal, than any long-term loss and any long-term cost. And what that means is that your Q1 and Q2 profit posting for oil companies and financial organizations that are bankrupting and foreclosing on individual homeowners, or pharmaceutical companies that need to post a Q2 profit on chemotherapy medicines are more important than millions of people that are dying of cancer or dying because they can't afford insulin, or it's more important than an entire generation of grandchildren and our existing children, protecting them from superstorms and climate change and our entire planet. It's more important than anything in the world. And I'm here to tell you that maybe Q2 profits are not more important than our grandchildren. That's what I'm here to say. So you can do whatever you want. You can troll me in the short term. You can rake me over the coals. You can make me look like an entire, like whatever, joke in front of all of society. Just know that that's a short-term reality. Know that that's a short-term reality. And whether I'm here or whether I'm not here, the truth and the facts stay the same, brother. And this is not about perception. Politics is about perception. But truth does not stay buried forever. It may take a year. It may take 30 years. It may take a generation. But truth will always rise. It will always rise. And so long as I can go home every single day and look at myself in the mirror and say you did what you thought was right and you did not compromise people and their well-being along the way, as long as I can sleep at night, that's all I care about. And I can sleep at night knowing that I did everything I could for all people, whether you are a rural, working class, white family in West Virginia, whether you are a family of farmers, whether you are a family in Flint, whether you are a family in the South Bronx. If I can go to sleep at night and say I did everything I could given what I knew at that moment to do the right thing, then that's all I care about. That's all I care about. Because I'm not in this for some like long-term political calculation. I'm in this to do the most good each day. That's what I'm here to do. So, that's what it is. And guess what? I'm 29. I'm the youngest woman to ever be elected to United States Congress. I have plenty of time to learn, and I'm not afraid to make mistakes and iterate in public either. And frankly, if the mistakes that I'm making are just a one-off, like, rhetorical thing, you correct it, acknowledge it, and move on. At least I'm not trying to cage children in the border and inject them with drugs. That's not a mistake. That is a deliberate policy to attack people based on their national origin. That's not a mistake. That's just hatred. That's just cruelty. That's just wrong. Someone said, happy hump day. And I always laugh because I barely ever know what day of the week it is anymore when you're so busy. Because it's not like you don't work on the weekends, right? It's like, I work in DC, we fly back home to do community events in the Bronx and stuff. So sometimes Saturday feels like Friday or and whatnot. So people are like, it's Wednesday. And I'm like, it's Wednesday? Okay. This is a good yoga mat. I don't have a yoga mat here yet, so I should just use cardboard. Someone said girls still didn't get furniture. I know, my self-care is lacking. Someone said, what's she building in there? I'm trying to make a desk, but because due to earlier voting, because I allowed direct democracy over my IKEA assembling, y'all voted for me to try to make this desk without screwdrivers. People were saying use a butter knife. I may. Okay. Step one, lay this thing down. like, where are the legs on this? I don't see table legs here. What's going on? Maybe it's in here. Maybe that's what this is. I'm concerned. I'm very concerned about this situation. Like, did they not give me table legs? Ugh. Okay. Okay. Someone said it's paused. Is it still paused? Is it paused for you guys? Oh no. It's not paused for me. Is it still paused for you all? Is it paused? Here we go. Table legs. All right. One. Interesting. All right, it's back. Sorry guys, I still don't have internet in my apartment, so you're getting 100% LTE, IG Live, unlimited account, whatever, unlimited data. I'm probably getting throttled because this is off my cell phone plan. And that's probably why it's pausing, but whatever. Someone said, what time is it? I don't know. What time is it? I don't know. This is live. I'm telling you this is live. Let me tell you. I'll do the check right now. I'll tell you what time is it because a lot of people aren't sure if this is actually live. Okay. It's 10:02 p.m. on the East Coast, so it's really live. How come Trump gets away with so many lies? That's a very good question. You should ask a journalist who lets him get away with this. Okay. Two. I feel like these wood pieces, but I don't see these wood pieces that they're talking about. Four, rot row.